God is a God of justice, and we're going to see that today in Numbers chapters 26 through 27. But first, welcome to Experiencing God, 365 Days to the Bible, day 65. So, yesterday we saw chapter 25 end with 24,000 people dead. Gone. They worshiped the false gods. They worshiped someone other than God. God wasn't having it. They were taken out. And so because of that, there's been a lot of people cleared out. And over the last 38 years, there's been a lot of deaths. There's been some battles. And today the Lord tells Moses, do a new census. We need a new record of people. It's been 38 years since the last one was done. A lot has changed. Many have died. And God needs to make sure that there's not any people entering the promised land who aren't supposed to be there. Remember, no one from the first census is to enter the promised land other than Caleb and Joshua's families. We see this at the end of chapter 26 in verse 64 through 65. It says, not one person on the list had been among those listed in the previous registration taken by Moses and Aaron in the wilderness of Sinai. For the Lord had said to them, they will all die in the wilderness. Not one of them survived except Caleb, son of Jephunneh, and Joshua, son of Nun. So a new census is done, a new registration is done, and every man over 20 years of age or older is accounted for and recorded in the census. There's 601,730 men in all. 601,730 men in all. Now, of the 12 tribes, Judah has the most men. Remember that was prophesied by Jacob, Israel, back in the day, that Judah would have, a great nation. He would be the greatest of the nations. And so in Numbers chapter 26, verses 52 through 56, then the Lord said to Moses, he said, you've gone through, you've done the registration. He said, divide the land among the tribes and distribute the grants of the land in proportion to the tribes' populations as indicated by the number of the names on the list. So go through. How many people do they have in the population? Distribute the land according to the people. Give the larger tribes more land and the smaller tribes less land. Each group receives a grant in proportion to the size of its population. But you must assign the land by lot and give land to each ancestral tribe according to the number of the names on the list. Each grant of land must be assigned by lot among the larger and smaller tribal groups. So, arrange it. And don't just be like, here's your land. Do it by lot. Make sure they have what they need. There was also a census of Levite men. They weren't included in the 12 tribes, but there was also a census for the Levite men. 1 month or older, 23,000 of them. But they were not included in the registration, like I said, because they were not given land. God was their portion. He would provide for them. They got part of the 10th, right? Part of the tithe. In chapter 27, we see the daughters of Zelophehad. I don't know how to pronounce that, y'all. But we see these daughters. They're going to request land. Their father had passed away and he never had sons. So they didn't have anywhere to go. And God is just in this. God is like, yes, what they're asking for is necessary. Give it to them. So in Numbers chapter 27, verses 5 through 11. So Moses brought their case before the Lord, and the Lord replied to Moses, the claim of the daughters of Zelophehad, I don't know his name, it's legitimate. You must give them a grant of land along with their father's relatives. Assign them property that would have been given to their father. And give the following instructions to the people of Israel. If a man dies and has no son, give his inheritance to his daughters. And if he has no daughter either, transfer his inheritance to his brothers. And if he has no brothers, give the inheritance to his father's brothers, so the uncles. But if his father has no brothers, give his inheritance to his nearest relative in the clan. This is the legal requirement for the people of Israel, just as the Lord commanded Moses. After that, the Lord took Moses. He said, hey, Moses, come climb with me. The Lord tells Moses to climb one of the mountains east of the river and look out to the promised land. He's like, I want you to come up here and see what you're going to miss out on. Maybe not. He's like, but I want you to come up here and see where the people are going. So Moses, he knows his time is short, and he knows he needs to appoint a new leader. He's like, I know I'm not going to make it to the promised land. I can see it from this mountain. There needs to be a new leader. Moses' heart was still for the people. Even though he couldn't enter the promised land, he wanted the best for the people. That's a true leader. So he cried out to the Lord for a leader. He was up on the mountain with him. The Lord replied in verses 18 through 23. The Lord replied, take Joshua, son of Nun. He chose Joshua. one of the two who said they could inherit the land, Caleb and Joshua. He took Joshua. Take Joshua, son of Nun, who has the Spirit in him. Lay your hands on him. Present him to Eleazar, the priest, before the whole community, and publicly commission him to lead the people. Transfer some of your authority to him so the whole community of Israel will obey him. When direction from the Lord is needed, Joshua will stand before Eleazar, the priest, who will use the Urim, one of the sacred lots cast before the Lord, to determine his will. This is how Joshua and the rest of the community of Israel will determine everything they should do. So Moses did as the Lord commanded. He presented Joshua to Eleazar the priest and the whole community. Moses laid his hands on him and commissioned him to lead the people, just as the Lord had commanded through Moses. That's a good leader. I know my time's almost done. He's 120, right? I know my time's almost done. Lord, give him a good leader. What stood out to you today? For me, it was Moses' heart for the people. Even though he would not enter the promised land, he still wanted God's best for the people. He wanted them to have good leadership. That's a good leader, making sure the people have the best option, even if it's not you. That's really a selfless leader. Like, comment, share, subscribe. God sees you. He loves you. He has a great plan for your life. I pray the Holy Spirit ministered to you today through this. Tomorrow we will continue on with Numbers chapters 28 through 30. See you there.